Good morning, everyone, and happy holidays to everyone out there watching us. Okay, good morning again and happy holidays to everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's EIV broadcast and webcast. This is on the Enterprise Income Verification System for multifamily housing programs. This covers just multifamily. There is training that is going to occur in January on the public and Indian housing segment of the Enterprise Income Verification System. So I want to ensure that everyone watching us today is watching what they think they want to see, which is the multifamily EIV system update. We came to you with a webcast in June of 2007, and a lot has occurred over the past year and a half relative to the multifamily EIV system. So we're anxious to bring you that updated information today. I'd like to first talk about our agenda, what we're going to talk about for day one, which is today, obviously. We're going to talk about gaining and continuing access to the EIV system. Some things have changed, so those of you out there who think that you already have access to EIV and it's not important to listen to this segment, I would encourage you to also watch it as well, because you may learn some new things that have occurred through the system. We're also going to talk about user administration for coordinators out there. What are your functions in user administration? What do you need to do relative to user requests and user certification? We're again going to have a segment on security of the Privacy Act information that is in the EIV system. It is an essential segment, and it is important for all of you to pay particular attention to the security aspect that we're going to discuss later on today. Then finally for today, we're going to get into EIV modules, searching for income information on tenants. Also, we're going to get into the verification reports. The staff that I have to my left, with the exception of LaDonna Reed Morton at the very end, will be our presenters for today. To my immediate left is Kevin Garner, a project manager on my staff. And to his left is Michael Sharkey. He is also a project manager on my staff. And LaDonna Reed Morton will be on the camera tomorrow, discussing a variety of different things, including case studies, and take you through how to resolve income discrepancies. I would also like to point out that Yvette Viviani on my staff, who is sitting at the front table, she will also be here with us tomorrow. So for tomorrow, we're going to talk about the specific EIV reports and another essential component, which is monitoring. We will talk about, for our contract administrators, including HUD staff that go out and monitor our owners and management agents, Yvette will go into detail about what will be required of you when you do this monitoring, and it will also be important for our owners and management agents to tune in tomorrow as well, so that they can find out exactly how they will be monitored relative to the use of the EIV system. So back to today, and before I go further, I don't think I introduced myself, but I am Gail Williamson. I am Director of the Housing Assistance Policy Division within the Office of Housing Assistance and Grant Administration in Multifamily Housing at HUD headquarters. And I apologize that I didn't do that. So today, what you're going to learn how to apply for and continue your EIV access, which is important. We've heard there have been some trials and tribulations along the way with this, so we hope that with the segment that Kevin's going to talk about after I give my opening remarks, he will explain to you exactly what you need to do to gain access and to continue your EIV access. I hope there are those of you out there who may not have access to EIV yet, and it is essential to get that as soon as possible, and I'll let you know why in just a couple of minutes. You're also going to learn how to safeguard the data that is in the EIV system. Again, I stress the importance of this information. Finally, today you're going to learn how to obtain tenant information in EIV, whether it's income information, whether it's information on deceased tenants, whether it's information on tenants that are already living in either a public and Indian housing unit under public housing or the Housing Choice Voucher Program, or whether it's one of our multifamily units in another project. Tomorrow, you will learn how to not only read the wage and benefit income reports, but you will learn how to understand what you're seeing once you read it. You're going to learn how to identify income discrepancies as well as to resolve these discrepancies. And the discrepancies are those that are $2,400 or greater because of multifamily's requirement that a tenant provide information once their income changes by $200 or more a month. You'll also learn how to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse in HUD programs using the EIV system. The EIV system is an essential tool that will help all of us to ensure that the fraud, waste, and abuse that may be in existence in HUD rental assistance programs is reduced, if not eliminated totally. And finally, tomorrow you will learn how to either monitor an OA, and when I say OA, I'm talking about owners and management agents. We use a lot of acronyms at HUD, so I want to explain to you what OA means off the top. And you will also, if you are an OA, learn how you will be monitored. With the agenda, we have built in questions and answer sessions, and if you have questions, we will accept them in one of two ways. You can either call the number on the screen, 202-708-0995, or you can submit your request or your question by email. And the email address is hudtv@hud.gov. So let me talk about the EIV system, the Enterprise Income Verification System. Last year I went into great detail about the fact that it was, or it is, an integral component of the Rental Housing Integrity Improvement Project. And it is also an essential tool to help us with achieving the President's management agenda item of eliminating erroneous payments. I'm not going to go into depth today on that because you can refer back to our webcast of June of 2007, which is on our EIV webpage, and I encourage you to do that if you're not familiar with all of the background on EIV. But we want to concentrate on other aspects of the system today. It is a tool to help us all ensure that the right benefits go to the right persons, because if we eliminate erroneous payments, we will ensure that we are giving the right amount of subsidy to the correct tenant through our rental assistance programs in multifamily. And as I said, the EIV system will help us eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse that may be in existence in HUD rental assistance programs. One of the benefits of EIV is it's quick and easy access to third-party verification. And in many cases, if the tenant doesn't dispute the data in EIV, it will eliminate time-consuming and costly written third-party verification totally. So that is something that you should concentrate on for those of you who are still using the traditional written third-party verification process. The reason it is quick and easy to use is because it's a web-based system. It's available to everyone who has access to it on a 24/7 basis. In other words, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Once you have access, appropriate access and authorized access to the system, you can access it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It more accurately provides third-party verification because, for one, it eliminates human error. And we all know that in getting written third-party verification, the employer may have written down the income incorrectly. So it eliminates human errors as one. It also eliminates any misunderstandings, whether it be on the part of the employer or whether it be on the part of the OA once they get that information back from the third party. So it eliminates that because it provides the exact information that is in the databases coming from the Social Security Administration and HHS's National Directory of New Hires. It also eliminates any collusion that may be in existence between a tenant and their employer. And it eliminates the ability to manipulate data because the data, as I said, is in the system that is matched through our two other federal agencies. What data is actually available in EIV? Well, because of our computer matching agreements that we have with the Social Security Administration and the Department of Health and Human Services, we have the Social Security data from SSA, we have the supplemental security information data from them, as well as dual entitlement and Medicare premium data from SSA. On the part of the National Directory of New Hires, which, by the way, Multifamily has had access to since January of 2008, so we're coming up next month on our 1-year anniversary of having this data. We have available to us the monthly new hires data. We have quarterly wage data for federal and non-federal employees. And we also have unemployment compensation data available to us in EIV. Now, who can access EIV? Well, EIV can be accessed provided they have, as I said, appropriate authorized approval to get access to EIV. It can be our owners, our management agents, service bureaus, contract administrators, HUD staff, the IG, and the Attorney General. Another benefit of EIV is that it will alert OAs of potential income discrepancies for additional follow-up. We want to eliminate as much as possible any income discrepancies that are valid, and we'll go into what is a valid income discrepancy tomorrow. It also deters tenants from misrepresenting their income. And I think this is an important part because as EIV becomes more well-known and as our owners and management agents are informing their tenants that they have available to them the enterprise income verification system that's going to tell them about certain aspects, their employment, their income, their benefit data from SSA, then as a tenant, they will be less likely to either intentionally or unintentionally misrepresent their income. It also identifies potential incidents of tenants receiving multiple subsidies. We have what is called the multiple subsidy report. So that will tell an OA whether a tenant is receiving assistance either in another multifamily unit or in a public and Indian housing unit, such as public housing or a housing choice voucher. And it can do both of those, either one or both. It also provides what is called the existing tenant search. So if you have an applicant, and Mike Sharkey is going to tell you a little bit more about that, but it provides the ability to search to see if your applicant is already receiving assistance in another unit somewhere. We have the deceased tenant report and also the verification report. Mike Sharkey is going to give you specific statistics as of today as to what we still have out there, but we do have cases where we have to eliminate out of the system deceased tenants that are in the system that are continuing to get subsidy paid on their behalf. And our goal, of course, too, is to ensure that we have 100% of our tenants verified, and both Yvette and Mike will go into detail with that as well. The EIV system right now is voluntary. I think for those of you who have heard me speak before, I've stressed this numerous times that right now it is voluntary. However, approximately next July, end of July or early August, it will become mandatory for multifamily. The final rule, the rent refinement and income determination final rule, has been approved by OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. We are now putting that rule through the signature process here at HUD, and it will then go over to the Federal Register. So we anticipate this final rule to be published, I would think, within the next several weeks. So the effective date for the rule is 60 days from the date of publication. So for public and Indian housing, the EIV system for their use, it will become effective 60 days from the effective date of the final rule. For multifamily, however, we have an additional 6-month delay for you to be able to get up to speed with using the EIV system so that you are on the same level as our public and Indian housing counterparts. And we want to ensure that you have had the ability to become familiar with the system and see what the benefits are before we do make it mandatory. But it will become mandatory the end of July or the first part of August, depending upon what that final rule publication date in the Federal Register is. I want to also, lastly, before I end my presentation, I want to tell you that since we spoke with you last June of 2007, we did publish an enterprise income verification notice for housing. That notice is Housing 0803, I believe. It was published in June. It has a lot of information. We're going to be updating that notice in hopefully soon. We're going to be starting on that process within the next few weeks. We also put out the quality control guide that is posted on our multifamily RIP webpage. That is a guide that goes into EIV and how EIV should be monitored when the OA is using the EIV system. And I want to also tell you right now our 4350.3 has not been updated yet to incorporate all of EIV policy, but that is also in the works. So you should, for those of you who have not looked at the notice or the QC guide, I encourage you to do that. And for those of you who have looked at that, be looking for revisions to the handbook in the coming months. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Kevin Garner, who's now going to talk to you about gaining and continuing your access to the EIV system. Kevin?
Well, thank you very much, Gail, for having me today. It's been a year and a half, so I'm glad to be back, and we've got a few changes to talk to you about since our June 07 webcast. So if you just bear with us, and you'll see that by the end of the day and by the end of tomorrow that the new EIV will be much easier to use, and it'll be a more powerful system, and hopefully everybody will be able to use it without any problems. First thing I want to talk about, we're going to talk about gaining access. And I know that you all remember from back in the old days when you just would fax in your application and you'd go from there, but it's a little different now. We're going to discuss, next slide please. We're going to discuss EIV roles and requests for EIV access authorization and also user administration. There are two types of EIV roles. They're the user administrator and the user. Now, for you old timers, user administrator is basically coordinator, and the user stays the same. So you have your coordinator and your user. Your user administrators now, they're a little more powerful, and also the user. Your EIV role will determine your level of access, what you can basically access in EIV. For example, different reports. Gail brushed briefly on some of the reports that you'd be able to access, and also whether you can get information on your users, especially if you're a coordinator. So that's basically what your role will be. It'll be determined that way. You can also, thank you, housing coordinator and contract administrator. Those are two examples of EIV user administrator roles. Basically, your housing coordinator would be a direct manager. Now we want to talk a little bit about the user administrator functionality. Approval of EIV users' electronic user access authorization form, and assign EIV access rights to users, and certify and expire users' access. That's basically what the user administrator can do, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. Basically, the user has to submit electronic coordinator access authorization forms to user administrator. In our case, you're going to submit it to the HUD Multifamily Help Desk. Also, you can view or print the approved or denied CAFs for 1 year. It's going to be in the system for a year in the system. Also, you can view and print various reports concerning users, coordinator access, tenant verification information, and tenant income information. We'll discuss some of these reports a little later on in the presentation. Got to remember, though, this information is private and confidential. very private and confidential, so it has to be protected. And we can't stress that more. If you take this information and you don't keep it undercover, or you don't use it properly, you can be in trouble. And you'll find out later when Mike Sharkey comes up and discusses the security piece, how important it is. He'll get into that. But we want to emphasize that, and we will emphasize it throughout the presentation, just so you'll know. EIV user roles. Next slide. Thank you. You've got a non-HUD user role. Okay, that's somebody who doesn't work for HUD, but they're also a user. The contract administrator user, HUD field office user, field office personnel, HUD headquarters user. That would be us, people that are in this headquarters building, and also the OIG user. That's the Office of the Inspector General. So those are the main EIV user roles. Next slide, please. For EIV user role, you want to submit electronically your user authorization forms. Okay, you'll be able to view or print the approved or deny UAAFs for 1 year, view tenant information, and view tenant income information, verification information, and income information. Excuse me, and you'll be able to do that for a year also. Request for EIV authorization. Basically, there are 3 steps. Assignment of the EIV role to a user, to user ID in Web Access Secure System, WAS. Now, some people call it WAS, some people call it WAS. We'll probably go back and forth between WAS and WAS, but it'll mean the same thing. Web Access Secure Systems. Okay? Assignment of EIV role to contracts and or properties in WAS, and certification of EIV roles to contracts and or properties in EIV. Now, you've got to remember, as a user, you're always going to submit to your coordinator, and as a coordinator, you're going to submit your information to the help desk, which most of you are familiar with. That's the way it's done now. Internal access instructions can be located on this website here, www.hud.gov.offices. You all have a copy of that, and this will take you right to the internal access instructions located on HUD's Multifamily EIV Access website. And this is what you'll get when you're in the EIV homepage. You'll see the instructions for internal access to EIV. All of this here. You give it a good click. Okay, and that'll pull up the information. Now, you also can direct questions to this website here, Multifamily Tracks Security at HUD.gov. Some folks have mentioned that when you use this email address, it takes a while. The people that work in this particular office work very hard, and they're very good, but sometimes there could be a backup. So either resubmit your request or just give them a little time, because, depending on what time of year, they could be backed up with many, many, many requests. So the folks that work there are very good at what they do, and if you have to, just resubmit your question. We'll go to the next slide. The external instructions located on HUD's multifamily website can be found here. It's a long string, so you all are familiar with that. And we click, and we have the external non-HUD coordinator user instructions. Okay, and when you click this particular link, this is what you get. Okay, this is for external EIV users only. This is just to give you an idea of what you're going to see when you do that. So it's an instruction manual, and it's very comprehensive, and folks who put that together did a very good job and make it clear for anybody who needs this type of information. The external instructions will explain how to apply for access rights as an EIV coordinator or user, and how to obtain WAS user ID and or WAS coordinator role. You've got to remember now, yeah, everybody has to have an M number. Unless you're a HUD employee, it's an H number. But for everybody else, you need to have an M number. So you can't pull off your coordinator access form or your user access form and think that you'll be able to get EIV access without having an M number. So you need to get an ID, that's the user ID, which is the M number. And I'm sure 90% of you are familiar with that. But for the 10% of you who aren't, or who are just brand new to EIV, or just interested in actually accessing EIV, that's what you'll need to do. Next slide, please. Oh, and you can direct your questions to here for the external users to the Multifamily Help Desk at 800-767-7588. Very fine group of people, work very hard. They're there to take your questions and to help you out whenever you need it. And also, we have an email address if you don't have time to call. It's multifamily_EIV@HUD.gov. It's hard to see that with the underline there. And it'll go to the same place, and those good people will contact you back when, with an answer to be able to help you out. Okay, I mentioned earlier about release 7.0, which is the old way, which is what we presented back in June of 2007. Now, prior to June 26th of 2007, all requests for access and expiration of access had to be submitted in hard copy. And I know for a fact that's what everybody did, because we received all kinds of faxes and mailers, and I know LaDonna and we just had plenty of paperwork, and we have the large file cabinets, filled with access form, coordinator access forms to prove it. Well, this new release 8.1 makes it a lot easier for everybody involved, us as well as you all. There's not going to be as much paper floating around, which is what the government wants us to work towards, less paper. We're going to go to the new way now. So that was the old way. Now we're going to go to the new way. New and expired requests submitted hard copy. Certification and recertification requests for CAFs and UAFs submitted electronically. Okay, so let's go to the next slide where there's a little chart, and it'll be easier, for you to see. New and expired hard copy, certification and recertification electronic. Now, the hard copy is basically the same form that we had before. I believe that the EIV administrators might have updated it a little bit, but it's basically the same kind of hard copy form that you fill out. Again, you'll need your address and your information, your M number. And certification and recertification electronically, you do that online, and the information will go to your coordinator if you're a user, or to the EIV help desk if you're a coordinator. Okay? So this is just a touch-up of what we said earlier. You need a user ID before you can apply. Okay, so new access, no prior access to EIV whatsoever. So that would be considered brand new access or new access. So let's switch over and we'll see our first screenshot of the day. I hope you all were able to print these slides out, because they're very comprehensive and very helpful. We'll see a screenshot, and if we go to the EIV application online, you'll see down here where there's the CAF and the UAAF application online. You'd click that, and once you click that, this looks familiar to most of you, I know. This is the coordinator access authorization form, and if you notice right here, you need your M number right here. It's your WAS number right there. Got to have that. Now, after completion of this, it's going to be sent to the help desk, and they'll have a special, on that form there's a special fax number where you can send that back to them. As a matter of fact, it's right here on the top. I don't know if you can see it from here, but there's a fax number. You'll fill this out and send it back to the help desk if you are applying for coordinator role. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see user, no, there we go. You'll see a user access authorization form. Similar, same, it's similar to the coordinator. The only difference is you're going to send this form back to your coordinator. This user form doesn't go back to the help desk. It goes to your coordinator. But it's similar to the way it was before. It's just updated a little bit. But again, you're going to need your M number. You'll see as a part of the application is a rules of behavior, rules and responsibilities for viewing and using EIV access, and the user's obligations to protect data from unauthorized use or viewing. I told you this was going to come up again, and it's very important. Basically, all this information is extremely confidential. It's private. It's personal. You've got information on there that's not for everybody. So it's important that you realize that, and you're going to have to basically agree to be very careful with this data. To basically, let's go to the next slide, and we have the user agreement and certification. User agrees to comply with the rules of behavior. Okay, states the civil and criminal penalties for disclosure of EIV data. So you take this EIV data and you're not doing the right thing with it, you can be arrested, you can be fined. I mean, it's very important that you keep that in mind. You realize what you have here, what kind of tool that you have here. So that's what you're going to have to do. Also, user certifies to the completion of a security questionnaire, security awareness training questionnaire, which is taken annually. And we have the link right here for that. And you'll have to take that annually, like I just said. And I believe that my colleague Mike will talk a little bit more about that this afternoon after lunch. Coordinators certify that they received owner authorization, authorized contract official approval to access this data. So that's basically the letters saying by the owner saying that it's okay that you access the data. You've got to get everybody's agreement because the information is so important. So we have to get everybody in agreement. We all have to all be on the same page. Not to be cliche, but we really do have to. For EIV coordinators, upon receipt of an approval email and your approved hard copy CAF from the multifamily help desk, you need to assign your EIV roles to your contracts and your properties. Okay, so once you do that, then you want to also assign your users. So remember, this is for EIV coordinators. So the EIV coordinators will assign users. Just like we said, the users go to the coordinators and coordinators go to the multifamily help desk. And we need the next one. Okay. Instructions for the role assignment are in the external non-HUD coordinator instructions, and you'll see the link right here. And it's down here. And also, if you want to, you also remember, like we said, EIV users see your EIV coordinators. So here's the link right here. And go to the next slide. EIV coordinators must submit their CAFs to HUD's multifamily help desk, like we had said before. And here's that special fax number that I had mentioned. We couldn't really see it on the screenshot of the form, but here it is right here: 202-401-7984, and also the email address that we had mentioned earlier with the multifamily_EIV@HUD.gov. And EIV users submit the hard copies of the UAAFs back to their EIV coordinators. Now, I get you, some of you all I know are listening and saying, "Oh, we already know about this. This is easy." Well, and I totally understand that, but we want to make sure that folks that haven't been using EIV for the last, 2 years or so, are comfortable with the procedures, and that you, as a veteran, can see the differences, so that nobody's frustrated. Everybody can use the system, and we'll have as little questions as possible and be comfortable with it. So please forgive me and my colleagues if we rehash certain very key critical elements throughout these next 2 days, because it's very important that you understand and that we try to give you as much information as possible. Okay. Where are we? No, going back to, there we go. Now, sometimes a coordinator has to expire access to a user. Okay, so expiration of EIV role from contracts or properties in EIV can expire access or removal of an EIV access from a user's contract and or properties in WAS. So we want to give some examples. EIV user is no longer employed, so you can't have somebody, out in the street, with EIV access, because remember, this is accessed over the internet. So you can basically, anywhere you have internet, you can go to EIV. So if the person no longer needs to have EIV access, it must be expired. EIV user no longer requires the use of EIV. Okay, so basically it's a need to know. It's like back in the old days when you got a clearance. It's a need to know. Some people only needed to know secret. Some people needed to know top secret. Some people information. Some people needed even a higher clearance. So it's at a need to know type. It's a need to know level. You just think of that when it comes to EIV and EIV information. Now we have exceptions here. When an EIV user is fired, EIV coordinator must expire the EIV user's access to EIV data immediately and mark through the EIV user's current UAAF indicating termination. Now, let's think about that. A person has been fired from their job. Chances are they're going to be a little upset. So you can see how it's very important for the coordinator to terminate this person, expire this person as soon as possible, because you don't know where their mind's going to be. I mean, they can take this information and use it in a way that wouldn't be the right thing to do. Okay, so it's very important. So if we turn to the next slide, we'll see what it looks like. So you coordinators, employee terminated, expired access, put a hash mark through it. Okay, so, and you can put that in the file, so in case if you're ever audited or what have you, you'll have that right there available to pull out, and you can show that the person has been terminated and his or her EIV rights have been terminated and they no longer have access. Okay. Oh, next slide, please. Thank you. No further action is required once HUD's multifamily help desk or your coordinator has approved your CAF or your UAF request. HUD's multifamily help desk or your coordinator has expired your access for contracts and or properties. So no further action is required. Basically, once that's done, then you're set. You're okay. You're either expired or they're certified, or everything is all right. Now for certification, with the electronic submission, takes contracts and or properties that is currently in new status and converts it to certified status. New status converts to certified status. And the third and final step of the EIV application, this is the third and final step of the EIV application approval process. So you want to go from new, because you've just applied for EIV access, to certified. Now that you're certified, you're basically ready to go. You're probably feeling pretty good. Okay, that's great. Going back, back one. There we go. Okay. CAF and UAAF must be submitted electronically for certification of new contracts and properties. If not, contracts and or properties will not appear in user certification EIV. I've received many phone calls over the last few months regarding this. If you don't send electronically your electronic CAF to your coordinator if you're a user, or to the help desk if you're a coordinator, your properties will not show up when you go into EIV. You might be able to access EIV, but your properties won't show up. And I've received calls and said, Kevin, I can't see my properties. What am I going to do? That's why. Because you have to make sure that you submit your electronic CAF or your UAAF to the person that it's supposed to go to. Then your properties will show up. They will not if you don't do that. Sounds simple to most of you veterans, but for people who are just starting out, very important to realize that and to remember that. For recertification, recertification recertifies contracts that are currently in pending, certified, or expired. Okay? This is necessary to maintain EIV access. Now, quarterly, if you're an EIV user, and we're familiar with that, you're recertified quarterly, and annually if you're an EIV coordinator. Okay? So if the contract is in pending, certified, or expired status, they can be recertified. Basically, they can be recertified if the coordinator chooses to, or if the help desk chooses to. Thank you. Electronic CAFs and UAAF requests for certification and recertification are accessed online via the internet through EIV, and we've got a website here for that. It's the HUD Apps website, hudapps.hud.gov. Most of you all are familiar with that. And if we click on that, let's see what comes up. Okay, there, that's the website right there. So this is basically the front page when you're entering into EIV that 99% of you have already seen. You've got your user ID here and your password and your login. Everybody, leave that up there for a second. Everybody's familiar with this page, and this is that's your secure system single sign-in. Okay, let's go to the next one, and we have our legal warning here. Okay. And you want to read through that, and you want to it's basically stating that you have to, it's a secure system. You don't you want to have the right type of access and what have you. And there's some technical things in there as well. But anyway, click on accept. Click on accept. We'll go to the next one. Fine. Let's see what happens. Okay. And this is the WASP main menu. And if you see here, this is the enterprise income verification right here, which is what we're using. Okay. And if you notice, this is a password change. Every now and then you're gonna have to change your password, but they'll talk about that later in security. But if we click on over to the next page, and here we have the legal warning page for owners and management agents. You can't see it on here, but you'll be able to see it on your slide for owners and management agents. Okay, so you want to click both of these right here. There are the acknowledgments and the owner and management agent info. You click continue. Now this is the same thing. Only difference is this one's for contract administrators. It's right down here. For contract administrators. And you want to click this again. Okay, now this is owners and agents for PIH and multifamily housing. Now, as Gail mentioned earlier, there are EIVs for public and Indian housing, and there's also EIV for multifamily. So you want to make sure you choose EIV for multifamily, because that's what we're working with, and hit continue. Good. And also you want a contract administrator coordinator. You want to circle that. Okay. And let's see what happens. Click. Okay. And this is the authorization form. It's a little hard to see down there, but this is the coordinator access request authorization form. So since we're talking about the coordinator access request, and we know that the coordinator will be doing business basically with the help desk. And we want to click that, and we want to create a new request. It's the link right there. You click create a new request. Okay. And we click that again. Certify that owner letters are on file. That's the main deal with this right here. You're going to certify that owner letters are on file. Okay? And everyone, I hope, is familiar with the owner letters. You have to get owners' letters of authorization, so they basically agree to let you access EIV, for their contracts or on for their properties. So, and make sure that the owners' letters are on file. Very important. So let's go to the next one. And this is the same thing, only it's for contract administrators. Okay. Next one, please. Okay. Populated. All right. These are the electronic CAF, which is what we had talked about earlier. Populated field selection and fillable fields. Okay. So this is basic information: date, user ID, role, user role, username, email. That's basic information. And then you want to go to the next one, please. Then you want to go to the field selection, type of action request. Is it a certification? Is it a recertification? Is it a termination? Contract, project number. You've got to know what contract or project number you're working with, so that's very important. Coordinator affiliation, owner, agent, or service bureau. Okay, thank you. Now, these are the fillable fields. The type of work that involves the use of data that is contained in the EIV system: Privacy Act, acknowledgement, certification of owner letters, certification of authorized official, certification of completion, and the Security Awareness Training Questionnaire, which we touched on briefly earlier. You need to mark that accordingly. And let's look at this for a second. This is a contract information type of request. And it's hard to see here, but there's a little drop-down menu right here, okay? And you can see that on your slide. And you have a choice. You can hit certification, or recertification, termination. You basically have to select one of those. And you've got information up here, phone numbers and all other types of information, just to give you an idea as to how confidential a lot of this information is. Okay, now to complete and submit the CAF request, okay, acknowledgement and certification right along the side here, just like we did before. Check, check, check. Okay, submit request. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, now once we've submit request, this is what'll come up. Pending. Okay, that's because if you look up here, its requested selection was pending. Okay, now if you look on your slides, you'll see edit and delete right here on the side. You can edit and delete it while in pending. So, I mean, if you want to change something, or if you have some more information that you want to add or what have you, or you delete something out, while it's in pending, you can edit, and you can edit or delete while the request is in pending. So that works out okay. And it'll be in pending until the help desk acts on it, if you're a coordinator, and it'll be in pending until your coordinator acts on it if you're a user. And we'll go to the next slide, and we'll just see a chart here. We like charts because it's visual, and a lot of times it's easier to remember the information if we have a chart. Creating a new request, edit, which edits and modifies the CAF, delete the coordinator access form request, change view. The system automatically defaults to pending, but if you wanted to change the view, you wanted to change it to something else, you could. And view CAF, which allows you to see the submitted CAF. And since you've seen the submitted CAF like we had mentioned before, it'll be in pending. If you view the CAF and you see something that might need to be changed, you'll have a chance to do that. Okay, now let's look over here. And it says, and once the help desk has approved this particular, has approved the application, it'll show up here as approved. Shows the CAF has been approved. Now, let's click on view right here to see the approved CAF, and that's what's exciting, the approved CAF. And if you look right here, which you can't really see, but you can see it on your slide, it says approved. And that's basically what you want. You want it to get approved, but and that's a good thing. Now click print, okay, and then you can print the particular. You can print the CAF and have it for your records. Also, the welcome page for the housing user and contract administrator user roles. And again, like we did, like similar to before, authorize request down here in the corner. Click. And this is what we get. This is an electronic UAAF. Similar to the CAAF, similar to the CAF, but that's a user authorization form. Okay, let's go to the next one, right? And we have we have all of our fillable fields here, okay? And your checks here that you have to put a check here and here, okay? For certification of the security awareness certification, and for the acknowledgments regarding your ID and password and what have you. You have to do that all the time, so it'll be the same over here as it was before. And we'll hit submit request right down here. And remember, it defaults to pending. So we're in pending again. Only this is a user form as opposed to a coordinator form. Can everybody hear me now? Is it better? I didn't want to be too far away from the mic. I didn't want to holler at you all. Okay. Okay, so we're back. We're back to pending over here. Okay, because we want to create a new request. It's at pending. It's pending because why? Because the coordinator hasn't acted on it yet. This is a user form. Coordinator hasn't acted on it yet, so it's still in pending. We go to the next slide, and look, now it's approved. It's approved now, so the coordinator has already approved. And it's going to show up as being approved. And of course, click to print so that you can put it in your files and keep it in your records, which is very important. You got to keep track of everything. Excuse me. Okay, that is basically the first part of the presentation. It's the approved, and now
we're going to take a few clarifications before we get into.
Okay, we're going to say Gail, like we're going to take some clarification. That's probably the best. And okay, I guess I'll turn it over.
LaDonna's going to clarify a few issues. Oh,
I'm going to have a few issues clarified.
I was wondering why you're handing me the microphone.
Well, here's LaDonna.
Go ahead, LaDonna.
Hello, and happy holidays and good morning. My name is LaDonna Reed Morton, as Gail Williamson introduced me earlier today. I just wanted to emphasize a few points that Kevin Garner made during his presentation. There's a lot of things that happened since the last time we were with you. That was last June in 2007. One of the things was we created a new role for our contract administrator coordinators. Last year we only had one role, and that was the housing coordinator role. And I think in the last release, we then created the CAC role and the HSC role. That's so that we'll have the ability to identify those contract administrators out there. And because of some of the comments that we received from you, based on the system, you needed to have the ability to switch your roles. Some of you who are acting as contract administrators, you're also property owners. So we need to provide you with a role to accommodate you on that. And that was the ability to switch your role is there in the EIV system when you're first entering it. And another thing, one of the things that Kevin Garner was talking about was how the application process has changed so much. And that's because we've established a relationship between user requests and the user certification. So as Kevin mentioned, you can't just go in and submit your online CAF or UAAF and be certified, shortly thereafter. Now, because of this this relationship, a lot of the contract administrators or owners are finding, it can be somewhat difficult to be certified in EIV if without first getting an approved UAF or CAF. This is because originally or before, some coordinators and even some users were getting access to EIV without even filling out the hard copy CAF. And so we wanted to ensure that the appropriate paperwork was being completed before we provided you with EIV access. One other thing that was added to the EIV system on the application form, which Kevin Garner here had already communicated, was a security awareness training questionnaire. That's something new. We didn't have that before. That's one of the requirements that we have from HHS, and that is to provide you with annual security awareness training. So with the security awareness training questionnaire is provided there on HUD's website, so we've made that available to you. And just the rules of behavior. Want to make you aware that that too will be updated to accommodate certain situations which Yvette Viviani will be getting into with respect to how the income reports are handled and distributed among property staff. Okay, and so with respect to changing or getting your contracts recertified, even though your contracts are in certified status, in order for you to get all of your contracts onto one schedule, for example, you have 100 contracts or properties out there. 50 of them are due for recertification in January of 09. Then you have another set that's due for recertification in June of 09. You can go ahead and request, put in a request, an online request to the help desk or to your coordinator for certification so that you can get all of your contracts and property on your one schedule. We encourage you to do that. And then I just want to make you aware that we're going to be making a few changes to the online CAF, which at the last training, EIV coordinators did not have access to that. So this year we're able to provide you with more detailed information and functionality on the online coordinator request. So one of the things that will be changing is that we're going to be changing one of the actions from termination to expiration. And it's also very good. It'd be very good for you to print off your forms. Kevin made the point that they are printable. It would be a good idea for you to print them off because at the time of your MOR, you're going to have to make that available to the contract administrator. And if, for example, it's only available online and your computer is down or whatever the problem, you won't be able to provide that online CAF that you should really have. So printing that off would be a good idea. So I just wanted to just emphasize a few points, not really clarify, but just emphasize a few points that Kevin made because it's really important that you understand the relationship between the user request and certification, which is really, not complicated, but changed the process for us.
And important.
And it's very important, as Gail Williamson just noted. And I think that's all I have at this time.
Okay, Kevin, you want to move on to user administration, then we'll take questions.
We're going to move on to user administration, and then we'll take questions. A user administration, this section will include user requests, user certification report, and coordinator certification report. Next slide, please. Since we're discussing access, I guess the first thing we should probably talk about are user requests to coordinators, external. The user request can be view user online UAAF, approve, deny, or put UAAF requests on hold until such time the coordinators are ready to act on them. And we mentioned a little bit about that last time when we were talking in the last section. So this is basically what a user can do. Okay. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see a screenshot and it's the user requests all the way down here on the left-hand side. And we want to go to the next page and look as we talked about earlier. Pending. Request a selection defaults to pending automatically, and if you look along here, all of the statuses of all these apps are going to be in pending. Okay. If you look in the second column, you see type of action requested. Thank you very much. You'll see types of action requested: certification, recertification, termination. Okay. So from my understanding, the next release, you'll be able to sort by date received. That's what they're working on, and the EIV programmers and LaDonna who were working on that. So the next release will be even more powerful than this release. Okay. If you click the down arrow, and you'll see all approved, denied, on hold, or pending. You'll see this drop down right here, and you'll be able to click on whatever you want. You can click on, if we click on change view, and you click on change view, and then you'll see basically under actions, click the details button to approve, deny, or to put the user's request on hold. Okay, here's your details button. You click this details button. So when we click the details button, this is what we get. Next slide. There we go. And if you look here, you'll see it's still pending. And this is the have to break 5 minutes. And you'll see exactly what we have here, and you'll see that it's pending. And remember, you can also print this out like we did earlier. If you look along the bottom, you'll see. Excuse me. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay. Right now? Okay. We're gonna change mics. So I'm gonna finish this slide, and we're gonna change mics, and then we'll come back. So apparently I'm not being heard that clearly. So we're gonna try to fix that up. But for this slide here, you'll see that it's pending, and this is a user's completed UAF form is ready for action. So we'll stop right here. We'll do a little technical switch around, and we'll get right back to you. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. Well, welcome back, folks. We had to do a few little technical things, so we're back now, and hopefully everything will work just fine. When we left off, we were at the completed UAAF form for action. And this is the form right up here. So if you look along the bottom, let's go to the next, and we'll look at the actions along the bottom. Approved, denied, on hold, or cancel. So we'll just see what each one of those actually how they work. So if we go to the next slide, we'll look at the approved. And if you notice, a little banner pops up and it asks you, "Are you sure you'd like to approve this particular application?" And very important, it gives you a chance to think about it if you need to, or back out if need be, just so that when you click the approve button, that's not it. You're not done. So you can actually, back away from it if need be. But it's just a little safeguard. So if you click the OK button, and then that will approve it. And second, if we go to the denied button, the same thing is going to happen. Another little banner will come up and ask are you sure you want to deny this particular application? And you can either say OK or you can say cancel, up to you. But I must also say that if you need to deny an application, you have to put the reason why. And there's a little space for it down here that's circled. It states the reason why you're going to deny this particular application. And let's go to on hold. Same thing. Gives you and asks you if you definitely would like to put this UAAF on hold. Yes or no, or okay or cancel. It's going to pop up like that. It's just a way for the system to help you out, just so that you can make sure you're going to do what you're doing. And cancel, next slide, please. There we go. Good. Cancel means no action at all, basically. It backs you back to where you were before. So that's pretty much what's going on with the actions across the bottom. If we look at user certification, which is the next page. Thank you. User certification, certify a user's EIV access for contracts and properties that is in the new, the pending, or the expired status. Want to get all the contracts, basically all together. And LaDonna had mentioned that briefly earlier, and I'm sure it'll come up again. Also, with the expiring of user certification, users EIV access for contracts and properties that are currently certified. Owners and agents basically are the ones who would be able to do this. And you can also these are the two user certification things actions that you can take. If we go to user certification description. Thank you. You have 5 basic descriptions, 5 actions that you can take. All new, pending, certified, or expired. The all status basically puts you in complete listing of contracts and properties that are in new, pending, certified, or expired status. The new shows the new contracts and properties that have not been certified within EIV. These are the 5 different view options, excuse me. Pending, user contracts and properties that are currently certified but awaiting certification for next quarter. Remember, users certified quarterly, coordinators certified annually. And actually in this next slide, you'll see here that users contracts certified for a 3-month period, which is quarterly. And coordinator contracts and properties are certified for a 1-year period, which is annually. Expired user contracts and properties were previously certified, but not recertified by the user administrator or by the help desk by the end of the certification period to maintain EIV access. The system will terminate access when not certified at this in time. So now I'll show you user certification. We've got right here, and we look down right at the corner here, and that's user certification functionality. and we click on that particular button, and we choose contracts or properties, and click Get Users. Click. Under this action, if you look along the bottom here, before we can either certify, we can expire, select, or deselect. Now, in this particular contract, you've got 3. But we can print out. As everybody knows, we can click on. We can click Get Users and have 200. So you may need to use select or deselect all. You can do it one at a time. It's up to you. Under Action, click checkbox for New Contract Project and click Certify. So we want to check who we want to certify and then click Certify. Thank you. You'll go from New to Certified. Under User Status, you'll see User Status. Now it's Certified. This particular applicant has been certified. Okay. Now under Action, go back. Thank you. Under Action, click checkbox for Certified Contract Properties and click Expire. Okay. Right along the bottom there. And oh, look at this. Are you sure you want to expire? It gives you the little warning banner just to give you a chance in case you've changed your mind. So remember the reason why we expired. Reassignment, new job, no longer requires access, so it's going to ask you for sure. Are you sure you want to expire? So in this case, we'll just say OK. And you'll see under the user status, right here, under user status, you'll see expired. So we know that particular user or that particular contract is expired. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The user certification report is an online listing of EIV users' EIV status. And like we had said before, new, pending, expired, and certified. So that's just kind of a wrap-up. And if you go back to the user certification report, you go down here, like we were before, user certification report, and we click on report. And like we did before, select contracts or projects and click Get Report. So we select contracts and we click Get Report. Now, the benefit of this is before coordinators did not know user certification status. So now, since they've updated with the 8.1, now they're able to see that. Actually, I want to skip to the next slide. There we go. And you'll see a long list of users here, and you know whether they've been expired or whether they're new. And in this particular case, we've listed all. But remember, we can list all, pending, certified, expired, and new. So if you look what's circled here, that's the certification status drop-down list. Okay, now let's go to the next slide, please. Now you basically want to check the box next to the user ID, and so that you can hit certify. And this is, remember now, without an approved UAAF, the coordinator will not be able to certify. Okay. And select property and click expire. That's if you want to expire. That's just depends on what has to be done at that particular time. You don't have to expire, but if you need to expire, you would do it the same way. And again, I think this is great the way the system is set up, and it allows you and asks you one more time whether or not you want to go through with an action. So like we have here on the next slide, please. Here we go. Are you sure you want to expire this particular user or selected assignments for this user? And again, yes or no, or okay or cancel. And the coordinator must confirm, basically, so they can't go past this. Oh, next slide, please. Thank you very much. Coordinator certification report. View the certification status and effective dates of contracts, projects in their portfolio. Okay. Previously, before 8.1, we were unable to determine user certification status, and they basically had to call the help desk to find that out. But now don't have to do that anymore, which is good. Again, and even the next version will be even stronger. Will even be more shortcuts, and that'll be great. Now, if we can go to the coordinator certification report, the next slide, and you'll find that in the same area as right there at the navigational bar down there at the side, a coordinator certification report. We'll click on that, and now you have a long list or short list, depending of all the user statuses that have been certified, all the people in contracts that have been certified, right along here. Now, in case there are any questions, we have time. We can answer some questions, and we have Gail and LaDonna and myself and Mike, and we can answer any questions that you might need. I hope the presentations was informative, and please go to the net and download the slides if you didn't have a chance to do that, because it's much easier to follow along if you have the slides in front of you. So I'm going to turn it over to Gail right now. Gail's going to come, and we're going to see what I can stay here. Well, I'm going to stay here, but I'm still going to turn it over to Gail. How about that?
That's fine.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to point out a few things to you just to wrap up with what Kevin was saying. I just want to point out on that coordinator certification report, it was prior to the 8.1 release where coordinators didn't know when their access to EIV would expire. So this report is allowing you to be able to go in and find out when your contracts and properties would expire, rather than having to call the help desk. So that is a benefit to you on that. I want to also indicate and apologize for the difficulty some people are having in seeing this webcast right now. We're understanding there are some IT difficulties. So I want to remind everyone that this webcast will be archived. So if you can't actually see it right now and you're having problems, don't fear that you have missed it. It will be archived hopefully within the next couple of days, and it will be placed in the webcast archive as well as archived and posted to our EIV webpage. So you can access it from both of those places. The other thing, as Kevin did mention to you, to download the slides if you haven't already done so. A couple things on that. I did hear from someone that when they try to print off the slides, it's printing off all black. And with her computer, we couldn't figure out where, if you print just pure black and white, which I could do from my computer, and we hadn't heard from anyone else that they were having problems. But if you are experiencing that same problem as this caller to me earlier today is experiencing, then I want to inform you also that we will be posting not only this version, but we are going to post a more detailed version of these slides to assist you in maybe doing some of your own training on site. Those will be posted. We will make them available in black and white, so that will alleviate the problems that I just mentioned. I want to also stress to you, not only should you download the slides, but please download and print off the case studies. We don't have slides on the case studies, so you will need to preferably familiarize yourself with the case studies before tomorrow, so that it will be easier to follow along as LaDonna takes you through the case studies, and not only follow along, but to understand more what she is trying to get across, what she will be getting across to you tomorrow. So those couple of things I want to stress to you. So now we will open it up for any questions and answers on gaining and continuing access to EIV, and also user administration before we break for lunch. If we'll put the slide back up that gives the phone number and the the website address to send an email, that will help us out. slide number 4. Okay. All right, we're getting to number 4 here shortly. I want to just remind everybody about what we're going to do this afternoon. We will come back at 1 o'clock where Mike Sharkey... That's correct. We will come back at 2 o'clock. Sorry. I'm rushing things. We will come back at 2 o'clock, and that's when Mike Sharkey will take us through security, and he will also take us through the EIV module section. I would instruct you to, let me tell you the phone number to call while we're trying to get the slide up there. The phone number is 202-708-0995. So please write that down if you would like to give us a call and ask a question. And the email address is hudtv@hud.gov. Okay, we have it. Okay, we have 3 email questions. The first email question is, how many EIV coordinators can a management company have? My understanding that in WAS you can have up to 5 coordinators. So it depends upon the business requirements of the particular management company, but WAS, where you get your coordinator role, limits you to 5 coordinators. Next question. Okay, the next question is, if the management company can have more than one EIV coordinator, can one of the EIV coordinators not be a WAS coordinator? If they will be an EIV coordinator, the prerequisite is to be a WAS coordinator. So the answer specifically to that question is no. However, there could be a business function within that management company where there could be one coordinator and a user in that management company. And that user, obviously, if they're not a coordinator, they would not need to have the coordinator role in WAS. The next question is, maintaining EIV printouts in active resident files. Do we maintain the full EIV printout that we run on recertification for the time frame as the complete file? Actually, we're going to, you're jumping the gun with this question. We're going to answer this question tomorrow, so I'd like you to tune in there. There's a lot of different aspects of this question, so I'd rather not get into it at this point, but Yvette's going to be addressing this in her presentation tomorrow. Okay, we have a call from Helena, Montana. Go ahead, Helena.
Yes, this is a contract administrator in Montana, and I'm hoping you get too much feedback. I can't go ahead and mute this. Has to do with conflicting tax ID numbers when you have a staff person come from a management company and they're still attached to the older tax ID number. Has that issue been addressed?
That has to do with WAS. I'm going to turn it to LaDonna because I'm not familiar with the issue, but maybe LaDonna has something to add on it.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, you have a situation where an employee worked at a management company. They had an MID, and it was associated with a number of with the number of projects. Their MID was, and they were associated with tax ID numbers. They now work for you, but their MID is still associated with those old tax ID numbers and properties. And you want to know, how can you remove or change that individual or convert them over to where you are with the new tax ID numbers and properties? Is that your question?
That's correct.
Okay. That has to do with web access secure systems, and what that individual would have to do, or what you will have to do, really the former management agent should have taken care of this, considering that individual is no longer with that organization. But that individual will have to have or contact the REACT TAC. I don't have that number here available, but it is on our Multifamily EIV website. Once they do that, they have to establish their business, do their business requirement association. And they'll know all about that when you contact them. But the best thing to do is to contact the REACT TAC to have them to disassociate that MID number from the other properties and to reassociate your properties to that individual. Now, is this individual going to be a coordinator or a user?
User.
Yeah, and you're the coordinator?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So it'd be fairly easy for you since you are the coordinator to get those contracts and properties up under that individual's MID number, because you can only have one MID number, unlike before where you could have multiple MID numbers.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Okay, we're waiting for additional comments or questions from the audience. Okay, we're going to bring up an email here shortly. It just takes a little bit of time to pull it up on the screen. Remember that if you have any access questions, that you should address them to us now, because once we move off of the access issues, we will be moving into other areas of the broadcast. What this does tell me, though, is that those of you who are out there watching, the fact that we're not getting a lot of questions is a good thing, I think. So now our email question is, when should LEED be included in monitoring? Which monitoring activities should include LEED? Lead?
Lead.
When should lead be included in monitoring? That would not have anything, if it's talking about lead, it has nothing to do with EIV. So unless you can resend us your question, we're not sure it's applicable to the webcast that you're viewing. The next question is, will you post these questions and answers on the web? We can try to accommodate you in that. We'll have somebody take down the questions and we'll get answers and we'll post them on the EIV website. So if we have any further calls coming in, another email's coming. Maybe it's a clarification on the previous one. Let's take a look. One email and no further calls, so we may be able to break. We're still working on the email, but if we don't have any beyond this one email, then we'll probably break a little bit early for lunch and come back at 2 and pick up with security.
Before we do, since we're on the section for gaining and continuing access and user administration, I just wanted to just add to what you said earlier about the coordinator cert report, and that was before coordinators weren't able to see when their user status or when their projects or contracts would expire in EIV. Now you'll see there that when they do see that one of their projects is about to expire, they can click the button and then it'll take them to the online coordinator access authorization form so that they can submit the request to the help desk. So you now have the ability to submit an online request through the coordinator request function on your left navigation panel, or via the coordinator cert report. And the user cert report is just so that the coordinator can see the status, check the status of all of the users below them.
Thanks, LaDonna, for clarifying that. We have the next email question is, what is the average time frame for a HUD field office user to receive access to EIV once the CHAMP and TRACS SUPPUAR are submitted? Don't have the answer in terms of the average time, but if it has been a long time, if you applied like a month or more ago, I would recommend, as Kevin pointed out earlier, is to just go ahead and resubmit your request. You can send an email to me if you'd like, and I can check with the person who is doing the actual processing of this just to make sure that she received the original request. But it would probably be beneficial to you and save time is to just resubmit the request. We did have, as you know, some problems with the May release for our HUD staff to get access to EIV. Those issues have been resolved. With the October release, we had a fixed release the end of October, and those issues have been resolved to our knowledge. If there is a problem with you submitting it and it's not working, we do need to be made aware of that. And let me point out, while we've been batting around the term release all morning, I want to indicate to you, for those of you who may not know, is that what a release is. A release, and we have generally 2 of them every year, every calendar year. That it's usually one in the spring and one in the fall. And prior to, let's see, the last major release we had was in May. In October, we called it a fixed release. In other words, it fixed a problem. We've had some resource issues in terms of having sufficient funding to do other extensive changes to the system that we may like to do, but hopefully those will be resolved and we'll be able to do more to the system than just fix problems that we become aware of. So I want to encourage all of you that are using the system to please send us emails. You can send them to the multifamily_comments@hud.gov mailbox, and we will get access to those recommendations for future changes to the system. Now, be mindful that if you send your recommendation to us, that it generally takes about 6 months. For instance, we have a release that is scheduled for April of 2009. Well, our business requirements document with all of the fixes to the system has already been submitted to the EIV IT team to start coding and fixing the system, and then we go through what is called a UAT for testing to make sure those fixes are working. So that if you submit your recommendation in the next couple of weeks, I don't want to discourage you from doing that, but you just need to realize that it may take some time before and resources in order to get your recommendations come to fruition. It's not that we will accept every recommendation. I can't say that just because you submit one to us that we will actually do it, but if we see that it is an improvement to the system, we certainly will try to implement that the best we can. But I just want to encourage you to submit your recommendations and suggestions, any issues you're having with the system, because we want to make this system workable for you, especially because, like I said, it's going to become mandatory toward in the summertime next year. So that once that becomes mandatory, we want to make sure that you are seeing the benefits of the system and are having as little difficulty as possible in utilizing the system. So, do we have any further questions, or either by calls or emails? Apparently we are out of questions, which, like I said, I think that's a good thing, because that means that those of you who are watching are getting access with no difficulty and don't have any issues relative to your role either as a user or as a coordinator. The user administration functionality for coordinators, I think Kevin did a great job in explaining all of this to you. So with that, we will break now. It is now 12:40 Eastern Time. We will return promptly at 2 o'clock. And again, make sure you download and print off your slides and your case studies.